He is the weakest hunter of all humanity, yet by proving his courage in a certain divine trial, he manages to obtain a strange system where he can evolve almost infinitely. Still, a certain ultra-powerful enemy will soon appear from a certain island, this one being much stronger than all the existing S-rank hunters. So our protagonist will have to become as strong as possible to be able to defeat him. This story begins with our protagonist called Sun Jingu, an E-rank hunter who lives in a world where, some decades ago, portals appeared, from which came very powerful monsters, so powerful that even the weakest of them resisted bullets with ease. It was also at that moment that people began to awaken powers, cataloged from E rank as the weakest, up to S rank as the strongest. The detail, though, is that when you awaken your power will never change. So one day our boy goes calmly to a dungeon as always, together with others. He ends up hurt as always, and his friend has to heal him. Sadly, they run into a double dungeon, which increases its difficulty by several levels, and since clearly they can no longer get out, they decide to defeat the new boss, thinking that maybe it would be easy and they would get more money. Instead, they end up trapped with these things. Yes, they are only statues, but then they also see some inscriptions. And one guy who prefers to leave, when he touches the door, is murdered by a statue. Yes, these things were moving, so they realize they are in serious trouble. And now I will introduce you to the secondary characters, who are the members of the group. First, the leader of this raid is Son Chiul, the healer and friend of our protagonist Yi, the cat-like Kim, who seems to say that he appreciates our son, but not as much as the chubby guy who brags that he has a family and is about to have another child. And then there are the others who are not important, being a total of 12, because one poor guy already died. The point is that now, our main guy decides to follow the rules of the inscriptions, the first one being to respect God. Because of that, he approaches the statue that moved its eyes, and when he realizes that it is looking at him again, he quickly bows down, with which he fulfills the first rule. Then they read the second, and this one is to praise God. When they see that, one of them thinks that it is simply about praying like he used to do with his granny, so he says he will take care of that, but there God steps on him, because the very foolish guy prayed to another one, and so the statue keeps on walking to step on the others as well. When he sees this, Park the Show-Off stands in front of a statue, thinking that this way he would be safe. But that is when they slice him cleanly in two. Meanwhile, Jinwoo is thinking and watching, noticing the statues with instruments, so he tells the others to stand in front of those. And wow, it works, because they start playing a melody. Yet when one arrives in front of his friend, that one does not play anything. So he bravely decides to move to another one, but God chases him to stomp him, and just when he is about to be crushed, our little guy manages it. Yes, without one little leg, but even so, he is alive. And now that they only have the third rule left, which is to believe in God, an altar for sacrifices appears before them, where obviously nobody wants to go. So the leader, with the enormous courage he is carrying all alone, walks up, noticing that a flame of fire lights up, so the others go too, and we see that the orange lights indicate the number of people inside, while the blue flames are the remaining time. At the same time, a door opens, and the statues are moving toward our characters. But they discover that, by looking directly at the statues, those things stop moving. Now then, everyone should stay inside the circle until the time of the blue flames runs out, yet some cowards, out of fear, back away, leaving only the leader, Yi, and our protagonist. This last one, like a real tough guy, tells them to stay, and well, that is how things are. The leader accepts quickly and carries Yi with him. Since our friend cannot look at all the statues, they treat him like he was a little paintbrush and give him a tremendous beating. And just when they are about to give him the final sword strike, the time of the blue flames also ends, which makes a window appear before him where they ask if he wants to accept becoming a player, but they also warn him that if he does not accept, his heart will stop and he will die. So obviously he accepts without hesitation. Later, he wakes up in the hospital, safe and sound. Yes, he even has his little leg back again. But then two guys come in, who were sent by the director of the Hunters Association, Go Gan Hai, and they introduce themselves as W. Win Chul and Kanta Shik. They tell him that Yi, his friend, ended up traumatized, and Sun is left without one little arm. When they went to check the place with an S-rank hunter, they did not find the statues or the altar. They only found him unconscious on the floor. Because of that, they believe he had a second awakening, and although it is very unlikely, they examine him anyway, reaching the conclusion that he is still just as weak. So they simply leave. Sun focuses on the screen in front of him, realizing that he has a pending message. So he asks his sister what to do, and here she is presented to us with the name Gina. The girl tells him to open the message box, so by repeating those words, he finally manages to see the message, where he is shown daily quests that he must complete, otherwise he will receive a penalty. but he thinks that nothing really bad will happen if he does not complete them, and since he is also still recovering, he decides to ignore that task. Nevertheless, when the time limit ends, the system sends him to another dimension for failing the daily quests, and since clearly he is in a desert with a huge centipede, he has no choice but to run to survive, for as long as this punishment of 4 hours lasts. After a while, by sheer luck, he manages to survive that time and comes back all covered in sand and, well, he also faints. When he gets up, he decides to complete the daily quests, which look much more like the good Saitama routine. Yes, 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats, and running 10 kilometers, a totally fitness life. Also, by completing them, he earns points with which he can raise his stats, from strength all the way to intelligence. As the days go by, he discovers that he has an inventory, a shop to buy items, and of course he receives rewards, like this key here, which takes him to a distant dungeon so that he can become stronger. Still, since he is somewhat scared, he thinks about going back, only to find out that he is in another dimension, so he cannot get out and has no choice but to defeat the boss. The first monsters he runs into are some goblins who, although before they used to leave him badly hurt, now do not represent any difficulty for him. But then he encounters a red wolf that howls to call its whole pack, and even though it is hard for him to bring it down, in the end he manages it. Also understanding that, depending on the color of his enemy's name, he can know how strong that enemy is, with white representing those who are weaker than him, yellow those who are on his same level, but if the color is red, it is better to run to survive, because they are much stronger than him. After spending quite a while killing monsters, he keeps leveling up, and as such, his stats increase as well. Yet when he reaches the boss, he realizes this one is much more powerful, because its name is Kaka, and it is the king of the Swamp of the Blue Poisonous Fangs, and as soon as the fight starts, it gives our dark-haired guy a tremendous beating. He is already tired of being the weakest, and of all the tremendous insults they throw at him, and of always being the one who has to be healed for being injured, so he finally pulls his pants up and, with sheer brute strength, he chokes the serpent. Kaka does not give up, though, and drags him all over the place, so after an intense struggle, our Jingu manages to finish it off. As a reward, he obtains a really great dagger called the Poisonous Fang of Cass, a C-rank weapon that has 2 abilities. The first is Paralysis, which obviously paralyzes the affected enemy, and the other is Drain, which removes 1 point of life per second. And not content with this, our Sunjin says that, yes, my friends, it is only a little, but it is something. Later, after leaving the underground, he does not see anybody, although he does feel the power of a monster, and when he sees it, he notices that it came out of a portal they did not close. Even if the hunters there managed to kill several monsters that came out, the boss is giving them a lot of trouble, because it had a really strong magic defense. So our protagonist, with a broken sword he found on the floor, throws it straight at the stone face of the monster, destroying not only its magic defense, but also the boss itself. He already killed it, and the others only delivered the finishing blow. As he is leaving, thinking that nobody is going to see him, it is his friend Yi who manages to recognize him from far. Our protagonist does not waste time, and starts training as soon as he arrives at the hospital. He even cuts his hair a little. And his physical change is so brutal that even the nurses are going crazy for him, and on top of that, they give him the nickname, the Hospital Heartthrob. That day it is one of them who has to go to his room to see how his health has improved, but when she enters, she sees him all sweaty, because he was training like every morning. Right after that, our Sun Jinwo apologizes to her, yet since this girl is really crazy about him, she also apologizes, and when she sees him turned around, putting on a shirt, she confirms what everybody says, that he has really good muscles. When he finally puts on his shirt, our protagonist asks her if she had something to check or tell him. She finally comes back to Earth and says that he is being discharged today, so she asks how he feels so far. Obviously, our handsome dark-haired guy confirms that he is already fine, and that his recovery is thanks to them for the good work they do, words that make the nurse blush. She just ends by telling him that he has to fill out the papers at reception. As he is going there, she stops him, and in spite of the nerves she feels, she asks our boy for his phone number. He thinks that surely it is to send him the results, so he simply agrees and shares it. Meanwhile, on a TV channel, they are interviewing Bi Yan-hu, who is one of the 7 national S-rank hunters, and there they are asking him about his life, what he does every day, and those hunter things. All this interview is being watched by his little sister and by our protagonist, who looks at the time and realizes that it is already very late, so before leaving, he wants to say goodbye to his sister, who has just arrived. When he looks more closely, he realizes she has been training, and he also notices her a little taller, but after remembering that men always keep growing even as adults, she stops asking him those things, and so she puts on her little shoes to go to school. Our son Jingu, as a good big brother, reminds her not to forget her umbrella, and since she does not listen, he pulls her with the strength he has and puts it in her backpack on purpose, reminding her that it is better to be cautious. Then he gives her a pat on the back, and they say goodbye, even though she clearly looks a bit annoyed. After that, he notices that he still has to run 10 kilometers, but seeing the time he has left, he can do it in a little while, and that is when he finally really notices his body, seeing that he has more muscle. He knows that maybe this is because of the stats he has, so from now on, besides being a hunter, he might end up becoming a bodybuilder. Then he realizes that he still has 12 points left to distribute in his stats, and thinking it through carefully, he knows that if he only raises his strength, it would be useless if the enemy can dodge him, so he also decides to raise agility so things are more balanced, and he splits the remaining points between vitality, perception, and intelligence. Thinking better about it, he deduces that this last stat might have to do with magic. At that moment, his landlord also calls him, basically the person who rents him the apartment. Sun answers quickly and apologizes for not having picked up before, since he was hospitalized, and he is aware that the man is calling him about the rent he owes. The landlord confirms this, but tells him that if he has problems, he can wait a bit longer. However, our protagonist is honest and kind, so he answers that he will pay him right away. The landlord thanks him and tells him to take care, and so they say goodbye, and Sun becomes a bit thoughtful, since he does not know if what is happening to him really is a second awakening. Yet now that he can defeat goblins very easily, paying the rent for the apartment will no longer be any trouble. When he checks on his phone for the available dungeons, he realizes that it is not so easy to find his favorite prey, and if he wanted to earn a lot of money, he would have to enter a very high-rank portal, but since he is E rank, he cannot go into the really good portals. Then it occurs to him to be examined again so he can earn more money. But sadly for him, a second awakening would attract a lot of attention from everyone, and never in the history of humanity has there been talk of a hunter leveling up. If the world found out about his situation at the start, it would already bring way too many gazes. On the other hand, the press would no longer leave him in peace, and people close to him would reject him. So at that moment, he forgets the idea of taking a new exam, at least until he can fend for himself, and more importantly, until he finds out where all this power he now has is coming from. As he is browsing on his phone, he finds a good dungeon, so he does not waste time and seizes the opportunity, heading to the place quickly, and on the way, he also takes advantage of that to run the 10 kilometers. When he turns around, he notices his companions for this expedition, and the leader introduces himself as Wan Don Suk. One guy recognizes him. He knows that Sun Jin Won is known as the weakest weapon of humanity. Hearing this, the leader apologizes to our protagonist, then hands him the contract, since they basically brought him along just to fill the numbers, because they are going into a C-rank dungeon, for which at least 8 people are needed. Another important requirement is that half or more have to be C rank or higher. In the case of our Sun Jin Won, they will simply pay him 200,000 coins for joining the group. Basically, his job will be to carry the luggage, which contains clothes, rations, food, extra equipment, and a first aid kit that they will need inside the dungeon. When he hears this, our protagonist analyzes them, noticing that there are 4 C-rank hunters and 2 of D rank or lower, so he realizes that this group is kind of strange, and he asks the leader